Hello and welcome to INE's CCI Service Provider version 5 Learning Path. Today in this course we will look at multi-level ISIs. So the only reason you would run multi-area would be when you have routers which need to connect to intra-area and inter-area. So any router that is running both the levels, which means I have some interfaces running level 1, some interfaces running level 2, in that case it would be called as multi-level routing. So we are basically implementing two levels on the same router. So like an L1, L2 router. So if you look at this example, I have a multi-level ISIS configuration on a Cisco IOS router. I have one interface running level 1, which you can see here. So I have one interface running level 1. I have one interface running level 2 and another interface running level 2. So this kind of a setup where a router is a level 1, level 2 router, which you can see here, he's a level 1, level 2 router. This kind of a setup is called as multi-level implementation of ISIS because this router has both. He has level 1 and he has level 2. Usually the level 1 would be to connect to the intra-area side and level 2 would be to connect to the inter-area side. Similarly, if I look at an iOS XR, the configuration is pretty much the same there where I go globally under my routing process. I would say level 1, level 2, which is by default. You don't really have to specify that, it is by default. But under my interface, I would say circuit type level 2 for the segment which connects to the inter-area side, and I would say level 1 for the circuit connecting to the intra-area side. So again, you can verify that by doing a show ISIS database. You would see both the database for level 1 database and you would see the level 2 database on the same router. Again, if I do a show ISIS neighbors, you'll see both type of neighbors, level 1 neighbors and level 2 neighbors. Level 1 would usually be intra-area neighbors and level 2 would usually be inter-area neighbors. Now, just to show you multi-area implementation, multi-level implementation of ISIS, we would use this diagram. What I'm going to do here is I will configure this side, all these routers, R1, R2, R3, R4, all of them would be in one area, let's say area 49.0.0.0001. I will configure R6 and R5 to be in a different area. So they would be, the area would be 49.0002. And XR1 and XR2 would be in 49.0003. So here, which routers do you really think that need to run multi-level? If you remember an ABR in OSPF, right? He connects to multiple areas. Similarly here in ISIS, an L1, L2 router connects to intra-area and inter-area. So here, R3 and R4 should be a level 1, level 2 router. They should be running multi-level where they have both the levels running, maybe on the intra-area side running just level 1, maybe on the WAN side or towards the R6 and towards R5, they should be running maybe level 2 only. I could keep them as level 1, level 2 anyway because they would only form level 2 adjacency with the WAN side towards R6 and R5. So, and also to show you where we have multi-areas, I'm going to convert this router to be just an L1. I will make R2 into just an L1 router. I'll keep R3 as level 1, level 2. I'll keep router 4 as level 1, level 2. R6 would be converted just to level 2. R5 would be only level 2. And XR1 would be level 1, level 2. And XR2 would be level 1 only. So this is basically an implementation of multi-level on all these routers where some routers are just running single level and some routers are running multi-level to have full neighborship and so that we can reach end to end. So let's try and implement this. I will start off with router 1 and configure router 1 with ISIS. ISIS has not been configured yet. The only thing which is configured is IP addressing. So I will implement ISIS on R1 and change the IS type to be level 1. So let's go back to my router and start off with router 1. So router ISIS, I should give the network entity title, which would be 49.0.0.0.1, which is my area portion, and then I have a unique system ID 1111.1111.1111.00. Let's do a passive interface loopback 0 and change my IS type to be level 1 only. And finally activate ISIS on my interface, so IP router ISIS. So R1 is ready. Let's also configure router 2. So router ISIS, again, this part would be the same, so maybe I can just copy it from R1. I could just take this part and just give a unique system ID 2222.00 and passive interface loopback 0. IS type would again be level 1 only. Interface gig 1.12, let's activate ISIS, and also on the interface 23 towards R3 and towards R4 I would have ISIS implemented. So basically, as per this diagram, router 1 has been configured as a pure L1, router 2 has been configured as a pure L1. So am I running multi-level on R1 and R2? No, I'm just running a single level on R1 and R2 because they only have one level running, just level 1. They're not running level 2 also. So now on R3 and R4, I will configure multi-level, which means they would be like an AVR running level 1 and level 2, which is by default anyway. So let's go back to R3 and say router ISIS 3333.00, passive interface loopback 0, and IS type would remain as level 1-2. I don't really need to give this command, it is by default. If I do a show run section router ISIS, you really don't see that command anyway because that's default. Let's go now to my interface gig 1.23, which is towards R2. Here I'm going to change my interface to be level 1 only towards R2. There's no point running level 2 there. So I could change that with IS circuit type level 1 only. And on my WAN side towards 36, I would say ISI circuit type level 2 only. So if I look back at my diagram, I should have level 1 here. So this whole router was level 1. This was purely level 1. This was purely level 1. But here on this link, I have level 1 here. I have level 1 here. I have level 2 here. I will configure level 2 here. I will configure level 2 here. And this would again be level 1. Okay, let's go and change that. So going back to R3, on the link gig 1.34, I would say level 1 only. So now I have ISIS implemented on R3. Let's do a show ISIS neighbors. I should have neighborship with R2. And R1 and R2 should establish L1 neighborship with each other. So I do have neighborship with R2 right now. R1 and R2 are L1 neighbors. R2 should establish neighborship with 2 and with 3 and 1 as of right now. So show ISIS neighbors. So I have neighborship with R1. I do not have neighborship with R3 yet. Let's check my interface. And let's check R3 also. Show run interface gig 1.23. So ISIS circuit type here is level 1. Let's configure R4 also. So net 49.0.0.0.1. dot 4444. Passive interface, loopback 0, and then go to my interface 24 and say IP router ISIS, and then ISIS circuit type level 1 only. And on my WAN links, which is 45, I would have level 2, and on 46 I would have level 2, and on 34 I would have level 1. Let's do a show ISIS neighbors. So I do have neighborship with R2 now. I still haven't formed neighbors with R3 yet. So R1, R2 are neighbors, 2 and 4 are neighbors, and 2 and 3 should also establish neighborship with each other. So I have R2 with R1, R4, R3, show ISIS neighbors, hasn't really formed neighbors with anyone yet. Let's see why. Show run section router ISIS. Let's go back to my interface. Let's do a show IP interface brief first, just to check if my interface is up and running. And let's do a no router ISIS and re-give those commands again. And interface gig1.23, IP router ISIS, and ISIS circuit type level 1. And on my WAN side would be level 2. So you see right now, R3 and R4, they both are running both the levels. Towards the inside, towards R2, they are running level 1, and towards R6 and R5, they are running level 2. So this is called as multi-level routers, basically running multi-level ISIS. So they have level 1 ISIS also, they have level 2 also. That's called multi-level. Let's verify the show ISIS neighbors. So now I have neighborship with R2. I should have neighborship with R4 also, which they would form eventually. Let's give it some time. In the meanwhile, we will configure R5 and R6. If you remember, R5 and R6 were supposed to be purely level 2. So these two routers would be purely level 2 on all their interfaces. So maybe globally, I can just go and enable the IS type to be level 2. So router ISIS net 49.000.5555.5555.5555.00. Passive interface loopback 0, and then IS type would be level 2. Let's also activate ISIS on all its interfaces. So gig 1.56, IP router ISIS, then interface 45, and towards XRV, which was 519, I have ISIS activated. I'm not defining the ISIS circuit type. I have globally changed that to level 2 only. Let's do the same thing on R6. So on R6, I have 3 interfaces, 4 interfaces in fact, 36, 46, 56, and 619. So let's do the same thing on R6. Router ISIS net 49.0002. 6666, 6666, 6666.00, passive interface loopback 0, and then interface gig 1.36, IP router ISIS, and on 46 IP router ISIS, 56, and 619, I would have ISIS activated. I should go and change my ISIS type because default is level 1, level 2. So IS type would be level 2 only. Let's check my neighborship. Show ISIS neighbors. I should establish neighborship with R5, R4, and R3, they should be neighbors. Let's check on 5, show ISI as neighbors. So I don't really see the neighborship. Now this is basically like a bug. When you actually go and change, at least on this version, when you actually go and change the IS type to be a level 2 only, it kind of doesn't really work on the virtual images. So this is just a bug, but what you can do is to make it into just level 2, you could just do it on the interface. Let me go and make that change. I will go to R5, and even though globally I would be level 1, level 2, so I would say IS type level 1-2, but on my interface gig 1.3045, I would say ISI circuit type level 2, and on 56 circuit type level 2, and on 519 my circuit type would be level 2. I should establish neighborship with 6 now. I have neighborship, I should be neighbors with 4 also. Let's go to R6 also and change that. Router ISIS IS type level 2 or level 1-2. And then interface gig 1.36 ISIS circuit type level 2. Then 46 would be level 2. 56 would be level 2, and 619 would be level 2. So if I do a show ISI's database, I have level 1 also because globally I'm a level 1, level 2 router, but on my links, all my links, I'm running basically level 2 only by defining the circuit type as level 2. Let's check my neighborship, show ISI's neighbors. So I have neighborship with 5. I should establish neighborship with 3 and 4 also. And in the meanwhile, we will configure, while the neighborship comes up, we will configure XR1 also. So configuring XR1 is not really different from configuring an iOS XZ router. It's pretty much the same. Let's go and configure that. So router ISIS1, and here I'll keep my IS type default, which is level 1, level 2. All I would give is the net statement 49.0003.1919.1919.1919.00. And next I would say interface loopback 0 passive, and also activate address family IPv4 unicast. Same thing I would do for interface gig 0000.519, just the address family. And I could give IS type as level 2, so that circuit type should be level 2. That should be under the interface. So circuit type would be level 2. And finally, I have the second link, which was 619. I activate the address family, exit out and define the circuit type. And then last interface would be towards XR1, which is going to be level 1 only. So level 1. Let's do a commit. So at this point of time, XR1 should form adjacency with R5 and R6. That should be a level 2 adjacency. And with XR2, it would form a level 1 adjacency. Let's do a show run interface just to see if my interface is up and running. And let's do a show ISI's neighbors. So I have neighborship with 5 and 6 now as a level 2 adjacency. But with XR2, he would form level 1 adjacency. Let's do that. So router ISIS1, IS type would be level 1. Address family IPv4 unicast, and net would be 49 dot 0003 2020 dot 2020 dot 2020.00. Interface loopback 0 passive, and address family IPv4 unicast should be activated. Similarly, for my other interface, which is towards XR1, I would give gig 0000 dot 1920 address family IPv4. I don't need to give the circuit type because globally I've changed that to level 1. Let's do a commit and verify if the adjacency between my XR1 and XR2 comes up. Show ISIS neighbors. So I have neighborship with XR1 now. So basically what's happened is XR1 and XR2 are L1 neighbors. So these two routers are L1 neighbors. XR1 and R6 are L2 neighbors. XR1 and R5 are L2 neighbors. This was configured as L2. This should be L2. This should be L2. This should be L2. This would be L1, 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 and this should be L1. Let's quickly verify all of my neighborship, and then we can look at the routing table. So this type of an implementation where I have some routers running level 1 and level 2, where I have some interfaces running level 1, some interfaces running level 2, and traffic is flowing from area 1 to 2 to 3, which is called as multi-level routing. So let's quickly verify R6, show ISIS neighbors. So I am neighbors with XR1, I am neighbors with R5, but I do not form neighbors with 3 and with 4. Let's check why. Let's do a ping just to check if we have reachability between the links. So ping 20.4.6.4. So I do have back-to-back reachability between the routers, and I do have ISIS activated on my interface. So IP router ISIS is there. Let's go to 4 and check if I have ISIS on my interface. So gig 1.46. So I don't have ISIS activated here. I just enabled the circuit type, but I have not activated ISIS here. So interface gig 1.46, IP router ISIS. Let's also verify gig 1.45. Again, on 45, I don't have that. So IP router ISIS. Let's check 3 also. So 3 show run interface gig 1.34. 34 does not have it. So IP router ISIS. And on 36, IP router ISIS. So I should see full adjacency now. I have with R6 now. I should have with R4 also. Let's check R4 also. Show ISIS neighbors. So I have neighborship with 2, with 5, and with 6. I still haven't formed neighbors with R3 and R4. I believe it was the link 34, which I have to activate ISIS here. So interface gig 1.34, IP router ISIS. Once I do that, I should have neighbors with R3 also. So let's try a ping end-to-end from router 1 to XR2's loopback. So maybe 20, 20, 20, 20, source loopback 0. So 20, 20, 20, 20 is basically the loopback of XR2. So my traffic is going all the way from router 1 to R2, to R3, to R6, to XR1, and then XR2. Now this type of an implementation, I'm running both the levels, right? On some routers I have level 1, on some routers I have level 2. So which routers are running level 1? R1 is running just level 1, so he's single level. R2 is running just one level. He's single level. R3, R4, they're running multi-level because they have level 1 also, level 2 also. R5 and R6 are again single level because they have only level 2. Our XR1 is multi-level again. He has both the levels, level 1 and level 2. And XR2 is only single level again. I hope this video was informative to you, and thank you for viewing.